Hello, Indy.
Hey.
So today I am here with Indy Srinath, and she is an innovative educator and permaculturist. She's passionate about connecting community to agriculture and uses innovative methods to remedy educational and health disparities in the classroom and in the garden. Through social media platforms, photography, and visual media, Indy creates a bridge that connects the uniqueness of small Appalachian farming communities with the greater world. So I'm Bevan Clare, and I'm going to be having the pleasure of getting to chat with Indy for the next little while and introduce the wonderful work she's doing to everyone. So thanks for being on today and welcome.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I am such a huge fan of Mountain Rose Herbs. I've been purchasing from you guys for such a long time. So this is really exciting for me as well to get to talk plants.
Yay. So fun. And you're in LA right now, right?
I am. Yes, I am in LA now.
Great. I think I see, is it ferns behind you? Are those ferns? Not a
Yes,
very LA sort
yes,
of plant, right?
yes. Not at all, but I have to bring a little piece of the Appalachians with me everywhere I go. So that's my little Appalachian medicine, the lush ferns.
Nice. So tell me about this, your connection to Appalachia. Where are some of the roots that you have around the world or the country?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in North Carolina, in a super small town. And in my adulthood, I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, which is a really amazing epicenter of good food and slow food. And the agriculture movement is really great. And the permaculture movement there is awesome as well. So that's where a lot of my farming background comes from. I helped manage a 7-acre forest farm in Asheville for a number of years. And I also managed an urban garden that was part of a low-income housing community. So a lot of my agricultural background comes from there. And then just in December, I relocated to right in downtown Los Angeles to kind of continue some of the farming movement here in a more urban environment.
Wow, fantastic. That must have been a huge change. Before we get to LA, I want to hear more about forest farming and tell us about that. I don't think that everyone's familiar with what forest farming is, how that works, why it's a good idea. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So what I participated in is known as non-timber forest farming. So that's farming in the understory of a forested area and not cutting down trees for timber. So what we did a lot of was mushroom cultivation. So on the 7-acre property that I was on, we cultivated shiitake mushrooms and also foraged reishi mushrooms. And we grew some lion's mane and some oyster mushrooms throughout the year as well. So we would collect those mushrooms and sell them to restaurants, and also collected the Ganoderma tsugai, the local reishi mushroom, and sold that for medicinal uses at different apothecaries around town.
Wow, very cool. So what does it look like growing mushrooms in a situation like that? Are you using like inoculated logs or are they something totally different?
Yeah, so we would inoculate hardwood logs and with grain spawn. I'm sorry, with sawdust spawn, and that's how we grew mushrooms. And then with the wild reishi, that was just something that we were finding on the hemlock trees, on the Tsugai canadensis trees, which are, they happen to have a blight. They're being attacked by this insect called the woolly adelgid, and that's killing the trees, but making it a perfect host for reishi mushrooms. So that's a lot of what we were doing as well.
So when the hemlock trees are being attacked by the woody adelgid, they are creating an opportunity for the Ganoderma. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. So a lot of mushrooms grow on trees that are dying. So unfortunately, certain blights or certain pests contribute to that. And the bright side is it does create a really potent medicine, because if the hemlock trees weren't dying, we wouldn't end up with reishi mushrooms. So there's
Right.
kind of, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm especially
it's
interested.
kind of
So where I
difficult.
am in New Hampshire is I'm in a hemlock forest. You can't see it because I'm using a fake background, but it's all hemlocks and they
Yeah.
haven't gotten that yet, but I know that it's coming potentially. So
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
and so then you mentioned shifting to LA. Like what was inspiring about the urban farming situation in LA. What are you plugged into there?
Yeah, so LA is a really incredible place, and I kind of became inspired by this community garden that was a part of a larger underserved predominantly Black, low-income housing population. And I just wanted to be able to do that on a larger scale with a lot of other folks who I also felt like had that similar need. So in moving here, I immediately became connected with some of the urban agriculture groups that are here. And the organization that I currently work with is called the Los Angeles Community Action Network. And they do a lot around houseless people's rights and Black and brown people's rights and just, gender equity. So in working with this organization, I currently manage a rooftop garden that's a part of their building. And that is located right in downtown in Skid Row, which is an entirely houseless population, and predominantly Black and brown individuals live there as well. So really dove in here and just become connected with this community, and it's been really, really amazing.
So you have a roof, you have a garden that's on top of a roof in this, and it's the building is, like you mentioned, a facility. Is it this organization that you're working for? They own that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And so what
Yeah.
is the purpose of the garden being there? Is it education, food, medicine, everything?
It's all of the above. So the purpose of the garden is definitely to feed the community. And I think larger than that, it's to educate the community and provide healing tools. So a lot of what I do is grow medicinal herbs in that area and teach other folks how to grow medicinal herbs. And then of course we also grow foods, annual vegetables. And then especially when it's not COVID, I was really able to dive in and teach other folks how to grow their own food. So they have that resiliency skill and feel empowered and are able to, even though they don't have access to housing or even access to a kitchen, they are able to come somewhere and have fresh, healthy, organic foods that are grown right in their community by a person who, they feel represents them through, whether it's through gender or racial identity. And so it's just a really incredible way of connecting with the community and giving them a sense of power.
What a fantastic way to make an impact and to connect with people. So what are some of the most popular things that you grow? What does everybody want more of, or what can't you keep around? What is everybody excited about?
Yeah, so the things that people are most excited about medicinally actually are peppermint and making peppermint oil, because a lot of the folks, like I mentioned, live in tents. So they're living in tents on the street, and rats and insects like roaches are a huge reality of their life, and that can affect their food source, because when you're keeping food in a tent and you have rats around, it's not great. So folks really love making their own peppermint oil and using that to deter pests from their tent and from their home. And then a lot of folks in the community called me the herb lady, because every Wednesday I give out medicinal or herbal teas that we grow right on the rooftop. So they're always asking for different herbal teas, and we make different blends all of the time. And so sometimes we do peppermint tea, and then we do California poppy tea or chamomile. We've done violet tea. So people really love tea, and we've done a lot of elderberry syrup with cinnamon. So I think that those are some of the most popular plants that we grow and that people really ask for.
So how are folks preparing these? Are you preparing like tea and syrup and oil in your facility, or are people getting them and making them themselves? How does that work?
Yes. So before COVID, we were able to invite other folks into the kitchen to prepare these herbal remedies on their own. But right now it's mostly me making them. And then I'm also very connected with the Los Angeles Herbalist Collective, and they collaborate with us on a lot of tea blends and have provided elderberry syrup. So it's a combination of community partners or just me making tea in the kitchen and then handing it out to folks.
Very nice. I love how kind of start to finish all of that is. It's like and very contained right there in the community.
Mhm.
You don't have to source things from outside and bring them in and transport stuff. And so there's a real connection, it seems like, between like the place and the people and the plants. I mean, it's all happening right there. That's
Absolutely. Yes, it's a sense of permanency because it can feel very transient to be in that state where, you just are forced to pick up your tent and leave when someone asks you to pick up your tent and leave. So having that permanent garden that's always there, that's always a fixture in the community, and you can get fresh salads and you can get tea from, I think is really helpful. And then to your point as well with the permanency, it really helps stop the spread of COVID when we're sourcing everything from our community and not having other outsiders come in and transport goods. So that's
right.
really been great for containment.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Oh, it's very inspiring. So when you were in you were farmers farming and doing some of these other things in North Carolina, it sounds like the um, the type of work you're doing is very related but quite different, moving between the two places. Is that right?
Yes.
So what has
Yeah.
it been like? What has this transition been like? Really different folks and a different living situation, and probably just really different needs in the population you're supporting.
Yes, definitely. I would say different needs for sure, because honestly, a lot of the work that I did in North Carolina, especially when I was growing and selling mushrooms, I was growing those mushrooms and selling them to people with a whole lot of privilege, selling them to restaurants where people could order a $40 plate. And, the mushrooms are just like a little tiny corner. And now I'm very much focused on growing as much food and as much medicine in a small amount of space. So I'm not even on an acre right now where I am. So growing food in a small space and, filling up people's bellies with as much food as I can for free.
Mm.
So it has been very different in the demographic that I'm working with, and also the climate. I think that, growing food in LA is incredible. Like I'm growing a pineapple right now, and I don't think
Yeah.
I would ever do that in North Carolina.
Yeah, I love that. I mentioned referenced Brandon Ruiz, who I did the interview with, and his kind of roots are so oriented in the Caribbean, and it's really interesting how many things he's found he could grow in North Carolina or places like that. So yeah, I think that relationship of plants and then bringing them to new places and then seeing what happens, and it's all super exciting. So how did you get started on this path around food and gardening and justice? How did you find your way here?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess my food journey really started, let's see, in high school. I took like a natural foods class in high school, and I just became very interested in putting healthy foods into my body and really becoming disenchanted with the current food system. And then when I was 19 or 20, I started attending herbalism school. And I went to herbalism school for 3 years. And it was in my first year of herbalism school where we started really learning all the names of different plants and wildcrafting and foraging a lot. And I started realizing that, it's amazing to forage and it's incredible to go out and identify plants and come home and turn them into medicine. But then I realized that there are a lot of plants that I could grow that cost a lot of money. So I started growing things that to grow, like golden seal and
Mm.
echinacea and St. John's wort and ginseng, even Panax ginseng. So I started growing that at home in that nice forest setting and creating really potent medicine. And I was like, wow, this is like the height of equity, because these plants are very expensive, and the fact that I can grow them and create my own tinctures and then give those to friends and family who might not otherwise be able to afford those types of medicine but really need access to them, I found that to be really incredible and rewarding work. So things just kind of escalated from there, and I started working on different farms and just like going out of my way to really work with these underserved populations.
Mm. Mm. Oh, it's really inspiring. It sounds like this is just like your path from the beginning, that you were meant to be on that. So if you were to go back and meet that young version of yourself, like maybe around that time that you were taking that class in high school or something, what kind of advice would you give her? What would you tell her? How would you support her?
Yes, I think that I would really go back in time and just tell myself that in order to grow food, um, and to grow healthy food, you need there in a very harsh. When I was living you and kind of need to just like run off into the woods and start like chopping wood with axes and like living very minimally, and I did that for a number of years, like living in a cabin without running water and yeah, chopping all of my own firewood and really getting into that back to the land movement. And I think that that's very lovely, and it taught me a lot, and I do have a lot of great survivalist kind of skills from that experience. But and I think it was part of my journey, but I would like to go back in time and tell my younger self that you can be kind of gentle with yourself. You don't need to give up all modern conveniences and live this very like ascetic monkish life in order to serve folks. So I think that, now I live in a very urban area, and, I like to put on lipstick and like go out and dance and like, spend a lot of money on this if I want to. And I still grow good food, and I still am connected with the real folks of this city and area. And I still love to get dirty. So I think that you can be both.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think, that's one of those things that we learn as we get older is about like moderation and just a little bit more perspective. I mean, youth is so full on, it's just like you've just got to do it all and you've got to do it all the way. And there's
Mhm.
just no other way to do it. And yeah, it is interesting as you age that you're like, okay, all right, this is what's actually important. Like, I don't actually have to do that all the way.
Yeah.
Like, I can
Yeah.
do this.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So as a fun question, you have this like a magical time machine thing you can take, and you can go anywhere. You can be anywhere, you can go anywhere, and that means like through time or place. Um, any people, all of that, and you can't go save the world. That's too lofty. Like you can't go like stop COVID or something. It's got to be like some kind of more of an enriching, like beautiful days inspired by your passions. What would you do? Where would you go? What would you experience? Who would you be with? What would that day look like?
Yes, a magical time machine. Yes, I think that the idea of a magical time machine, I'm always wanting to go into the future. Like I think a lot of folks are like, I want to go back into the past and, see all these things, but I think that the future is only getting richer and more vibrant, and we're seeing a lot more equality. So I would love to jump into the future and see how some of this farmland, like I'm seeing so many of these like back to the land movements from friends of mine, and I just really have a lot of respect and admiration for folks who are younger than I am, and for the youth of today. So I'd really like to fast forward in time, and honestly, like I secretly just want to like see how the rooftop garden that I currently work at looks in like 15 years, and like hopefully I'll still be a part of it. But I just want to see how LA turns into a space that embraces more green spaces and embraces, urban agriculture, and see more green rooftops. And I'm just imagining like every rooftop is like covered in a field of California poppies, and there's like everyone's balconies have marigolds like flowing off of their porch. So that's a little magical future that I'm really envisioning.
I hope that is the future. I really, really do. I hope that's what we're looking at. And I had the opportunity to go to Singapore a couple of years ago, and that city, they have so much green architecture there, and it was so inspiring and it was so beautiful, and it wasn't just like little balcony baskets of green things. It was like these buildings looked like they were alive, and I loved that with like just a lot of meaningful plants, and just also help clean the air and all of that. But I love the idea of how far we could go. And so I mean, are people just mind blown by this garden on a rooftop in LA? Is this really common, or are people like, what? How is this happening?
Yes, yes, people are very much mind blown when they visit, and I think it's also the stark contrast. So, like, when you drive through Skid Row in Los Angeles, I mean, it's a place that a lot of people have read about because of the abject poverty and because of a lot of diseases that are spread in the area. And a lot of folks are fearful to walk or drive through Skid Row because there is a lot of mental health issues in the community, and health issues, physical health issues as well. Um, so it does have this stark contrast when you view it from someone who's not connected with the community, because you see, just it kind of seems drab when you're walking down the street, and then you go onto this rooftop and it's this vibrant, colorful green space. And I think that it does, however, though, really speak to the heart and soul of the folks that live on Skid Row, because they are honestly these vibrant, beautiful people that have the capacity to talk to so many folks in the community, and they just say very beautiful things, and they're very open to drinking healing teas like we talked about, and eating really good food, and they're hilarious. And we play a lot of music together, like listen to music on the radio together when we're giving out food, and we dance a lot together, and we really just have a good time. So I think that the garden is very symbolic of the folks in the community. It's just these people are just always growing and always emitting this great light. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. So if you were, let's say there's a lot of folks that are listening to this that are urban people, and they'd like to get into gardening, but like they really have no idea. They tried to grow something on their patio or porch once, and it really didn't work out. But they love the idea of more green space or service work around greater food access, particularly in areas where people don't have it, or underserved populations. What are some steps that they could take? What is some advice? Like, well, how would you coach somebody that wanted to put some energy or time or resources into supporting that kind of movement?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that for folks who just want to grow something at home, I always say, like, grow the weeds, like grow things that are just, that will give you a lot of confidence and amazing, like you have an amazing, here that's nasturtiums, or that's dandelions, and pansies and violets, and even California poppies as well here. So I would recommend that. So gain some confidence by growing easy plants. And then if you just want to get tapped into the community and really learn from folks and gain some experience, I would recommend finding the closest community garden to you, and whether that's in the form of the community, your own little plot of other folks, and you get to see what they're growing, and you get to gardens that have an actual communal garden style where you're able to learn from other folks in your community how to grow foods, and you're supporting their passions, and you're also learning a lot from them. So I think, just connect in with those garden spaces.
Nice. So do you find most urban communities have some sort of community garden movement at this point of one shape or another?
Yes, I definitely, I do see community gardens popping up more and more every day. And it's not too hard to find one just through a simple Google search.
Great. Yeah, I love finding community gardens, and then finding like the herb people in the community gardens, like you walk around and you're like, oh yeah, everybody's got like tomatoes, and there's some okra, and there's, all of this, but I'm like, where are the herb people? And then when you see the herb people plots, you're like, oh yeah, there they are. There's the herbalists, because they're always like kind of crazy, and the stuff that you're supposed to weed out is like all over the place, and they're like, yeah, I can't kill that. So it's great. It's always really fun.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So who's inspiring you right now? Whose work out there? Do you anybody you love to like listen to or read, or it could be music or writing or video or anything? Who's awesome that we should know about?
Yes, I'm always very inspired by Leah Penniman, and she started Soulfire Farm in upstate New York. Yes, upstate New York. And so it's a great farm space that is that hires and trains and teaches and educates people of color. So it's a very inclusive space, and they're doing a lot of great work around people of color and farming. So I always admire her, and she has an incredible book called Farming While Black that is kind of like, biblical to me. So, you know, it's kind of like my holy garden tack. I appreciate the work that she's done.
Mm, I love that. Brandon was also singing her praises. So yeah, that's I know everybody loves loves Leah, and so that's Leah Penniman, and you can find that work online and Farming While Black, and there's all sorts of different wonderful information out there. Anybody else you want to mention? Anybody else who you're inspired by?
Yes, and another farmer and incredibly works with flowers, a woman of color, a Black woman who also farms in urban spaces in New York as well. And her work is super incredible, and she writes really beautifully as well. So I'm very inspired by her.
Hmm. Could you tell me her name again?
Oh yes, her name is Amber Tam.
Amber Town. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So is there anything else you'd love to tell us about? I mean, I have so many questions, but just, anything that's been really inspirational lately, any plant you've connected with that just blew your mind, some fun little tidbit to leave us with?
I think one of the most beautiful parts has been around, finding these medicinal herbs and mushrooms as well in urban spaces. And so I've had the, luck, I guess, of finding some incredible plants and especially passion flowers. So I've been so
Mm.
excited about this wild passiflora that is here, and it's so beautiful. It's the craziest looking flower, and it's so calming, and it makes such a beautiful tea. And I think it's just incredible. You can find it like wildly growing over fences. And in North Carolina, I tried to grow up from seed, me not knowing what I was doing, but I just wasn't able to grow it. And so to just come to LA and just see it, growing over fences, and everyone's just walking by it, and it's just part of the backdrop. That's been really exciting. So yes, that's my little tidbit to leave folks with, is like, creep around in the streets, walk out into the streets,
Mhm.
even if you're in an urban space, don't feel like you have to be like traipsing through the forest in like a buckskin dress to find
Right.
amazing medicine. You can find it right in the city. So
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, the less manicured parts of the city are even almost often the better. So more
yes,
things out of sidewalks and
yes,
yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Indy,
definitely.
for coming on today and for taking the time to share. Your work is really inspiring, and I hope that all of your dreams come true with the rooftop garden, and that it's just mind blowing and everywhere and not unusual. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I've got a rooftop garden too in 15 years." So that's my hope. That would be amazing.
Yes, I hope so too. Yay, thank you so much. This has been such a great chat. It's always great to talk to a fellow, one of the fellow herb nerds that with the things growing everywhere in the garden. So I love that. Yes,
I love
thank you
it
so
too.
much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, take care.